Anxiety's not in your head. Here's what to do instead. So, hi, my name's Rochelle Walsh, and I have a long history of being a complex trauma therapist, and I now have a coaching program for women, and I'm going to talk about why anxiety, stress, overwhelm is not just in your head. So when I'm talking about it not being in your head, I'm going to talk about it from a couple different perspectives. First of all, have you ever noticed that sometimes your symptoms get dismissed simply because it's just stress, and that somehow you're just oversensitive or making too much of things, or you need to just stop worrying, and yet you know that there's something deeper, something that isn't allowing you to move past a state of overwhelm, stress. So when I say not in your head, you're not imagining it. You know, when we talk about anxiety or chronic stress, we're talking about something that can be seen on a brain scan, that can be measured through different tests. You might have high cortisol, your adrenals might be failing. And again, if we were to see that on a brain scan, they would be able to see certain areas of their brain lit up. So it's not in your imagination. And it's also not that you are going to be able to fix through the ways that we naturally think about doing that, which most of the ladies that I work with have suffered from chronic stress, even if they may have said, I've never been an anxious person. So you might think, well, how can that be? How can someone have chronic stress and yet say, I've never had anxiety? And let me explain that. So first of all, a lot of times the stress that we feel has been normalized to us. We maybe haven't ever known anything different. Maybe we were at a very early age wired and fired for a state of hypervigilance. And that's just the way that's been played out, is that we've been high producing, high pleasing, high performing women. And so the more resilient and capable someone is, the more they are tempted to think, if I just learn a little bit more about this, if I just think about this from a different way, if I just look at it from a different perspective, if I just listen to one more podcast, read one more self-help book, get one more insight from therapy, or if I just keep telling myself I shouldn't feel this way, that they're going to be able to use their strong frontal lobe to be able to fix the problem. But here's the thing about stress. While it does sit in our bottom brain, our primitive brain, and is turned on or off in lower regions of our primal brain, it's also held in the body, in the nervous system, the limbic system. So when we are trying to use these top-down approaches, like thinking about something differently, talking about something in a different way, or dismissing it, or shutting it down, or thinking if I can just get another perspective on it, what we're doing is taking this top-down approach and ignoring the parts that are held in the nervous system, in the body. It's actually a chemical. There's a chemical component to the stress response. And so it's not something we just think ourselves out of or read another self-help book. So this is your permit. Does anybody have a library full of self-help books? And I love them. I'm a big consumer of personal development books. Let me know your favorite one in the comment. Again, nothing wrong with books, nothing wrong with learning. And a lot of the women that I work with are very growth-minded people. I consider myself to be a growth-minded person. And so I love people who are learning new things, but we can't learn ourselves out of a stress response. So reasoning and applying mental faculties to something that lives in our lower brain and is held in the body is just going to be a hard way to approach that issue, and generally pretty ineffective. And what I see result from this is also a lot of shame. So people thinking kind of, the more I know, the more I feel like I should be handling or responding to these situations differently. And so they get discouraged. They, again, feel ashamed or just generally frustrated. The other thing is that when we have a high stress response, things like decision making become harder. So our frontal lobe, we can have decision fatigue. We can, have a harder time processing through information. So another thing that happens with the anxiety is that our strongest brain isn't really all the way online. And so we are, trying to out-reason it when we don't have full access to those capabilities. So here's what you should do instead. So instead of taking a cognitive approach to anxiety, and I'm not dismissing the power of mindset because that is important when done in the right order. It's super important. And adopting general mindsets like I am not broken and I am okay and I will prevail and it is okay to experience things. It's okay to experience emotions. It's okay to get help. Those kinds of mindsets are super important, but we really have to work through attunement and safety to the body. Felt safety is a term that means that we can be safe to experience our internal sensations, our emotions, that we have good mind-body connection, and that we can feel at ease in our experience. And so strategies that allow us to be safe within are much more effective at calming anxiety than approaches that tell us we should think different or learn something new or understand something in a different way. It's just much faster that way. But the thing I want to caution about with that, a lot of times there are, and again, there's some very helpful strategies that we can do, things like putting your face in a bucket of ice or, doing certain positions to release stress. Those things are very helpful for kind of relieving stress from the body. They are not necessarily effective at stopping the stress from beginning in the first place. So if we are shaking it off and releasing some of that firing of stress in the body, we still do need to address the underlying programs that keep those stress responses activated. So if we work on the body without working on that tendency to people please or the tendency to overperform or stored messages or imprints from trauma, we're going to be better at helping relieve the stress from our body, but not necessarily stopping it. So what we really want to do is, again, practice mind-body safety first, because that allows us to kind of calm some of those beta waves. But then from a relaxed state, we're going to really need to work on those core belief imprints that are there so that we can stop the stress response and really start to pattern the way we move through life, our reactions to things, the things that we think about, the identity that we have. We're going to have to really do a little bit of work on those deeper issues so that we can not be in that position again. And so that's what I call a bottom-up approach, inside-out approach. And it really is the fastest way. Anything that's working with that lower brain limbic system is going to be a much faster way to start to relieve anxiety in a real lasting way. So if you want to listen to more of my content, I have more videos on nervous system dysregulation and calming the overwhelm. I'd love for you to listen. I also have a masterclass that describes my 3-step approach, neuroscience-based, paired with principles of Christian faith to help women go from overwhelmed to calm and confident in their emotions. I'm really on a mission to help as many women as I can live in emotional freedom without the burden of chronic stress or overwhelm. And I love connecting with the ladies that I serve. So I'd love for you to listen to some of their testimonial videos on here and know that, this isn't a way that we have to live our lives. So it's not in your head. It is something to pay attention to. It's not something you want to ignore. I'm glad you've tuned in, subscribe to my channel, and stay joyful and present.